started with a misdelivered package. Not exactly the most dramatic beginning, but sometimes the smallest things end up changing everything. That's what happened here. One Amazon box landed on the wrong doorstep, and the next thing I knew, I was being pulled into something I never saw coming. I'd been living in this apartment building for about 6 months. It's nothing fancy, just a small complex above a coffee shop, with paper-thin walls and a staircase that creaks like it's complaining every time you step on it. I kept to myself mostly, worked a lot, lived alone. My routine was simple and predictable. Then, about a month into living there, a guy moved into Unit 2C, Tyler Green. I didn't know his name at first. I just knew he had a backwards hat permanently glued to his head, and he always wore a hoodie, no matter the weather. He had that kind of presence. You know the type. Quiet but magnetic. The guy everyone looks at twice but doesn't approach. We passed each other in the hall a few times. A nod here, a mumbled hey there. We were neighbor strangers. Close enough to know each other's footsteps, but that was it. I figured he liked his privacy. I wasn't about to intrude. Then one Tuesday night, after work, I came home to find a small brown box sitting on my doorstep. I checked the label, my apartment number, but someone else's name. His name. I thought about just dropping it outside his door, but for whatever reason, maybe I was just bored. Maybe I wanted to hear another human voice. I knocked instead. He opened the door shirtless, like full-on shirtless, just wearing gray sweatpants and a towel around his neck. His hair was damp like he'd just gotten out of the shower, and his chest was lean but defined, a tattoo peeking out from under his collarbone. "Oh," he said, surprised but not embarrassed. Hey," I said, holding up the box. "I think this was meant for you." He looked at it, then back at me. "Oh, yeah, thanks, man." His voice was low, slightly rough. He reached for the box, and our fingers brushed for a split second. He held my gaze a little longer than necessary. And then, instead of just saying thanks and closing the door like a normal person, he said, "You want to come in? I just made some coffee." At first, I thought he was joking. Who offers coffee at 8:30 at night? But he didn't smile like he was kidding. He just stepped back, holding the door open. Against my better judgment, and maybe because I'd had a long day and he looked like trouble, I stepped inside. The apartment was surprisingly clean. Minimal furniture. A beat-up leather couch, a small table, and a few random posters on the wall. The smell of coffee was strong in the air, mixing with some kind of cedar-scented body wash that hit me as soon as I walked past him. Tyler headed into the kitchen like this was a totally normal thing to do. Invite your neighbor in while shirtless and brewing coffee at night. "You take it black?" he called over his shoulder. Yeah, sure." He poured 2 mugs and handed me one. Then he sat down on the couch and gestured for me to do the same. "I'm Tyler, by the way," he said, lifting his mug like a toast. "Daniel," I replied, sitting down a little too stiffly. "Nice to meet you officially." He smirked. "You're quieter than I expected." "Yeah, well, I don't usually barge into shirtless neighbor coffee situations." Tyler laughed at that, a deep, unguarded sound that made my skin prickle. "Fair enough." We talked for maybe 20 minutes. Nothing too deep. He asked what I did, graphic design. I asked about him, construction management. The whole time, I was hyper-aware of how close we were sitting on that couch. The way his knee occasionally brushed mine. The way he looked at me when I was talking, like he was trying to read between the lines. I told myself it was nothing, just coffee, just being neighborly. But when I stood to leave, he walked me to the door and said, "You should come by again sometime." I said, "Sure," but the truth? I already knew I would. The next time I saw Tyler, he wasn't shirtless. He was in jeans and a hoodie, standing in the laundry room 2 days later, headphones in, nodding along to something on his phone. I was switching my clothes from washer to dryer when he looked up, pulled one earbud out, and gave me a little half smile. "Hey," he said casually, like we hadn't shared coffee at his place in a weirdly intimate silence a couple nights before. "Hey," I said back, trying not to sound awkward. "Laundry day?" He glanced at the dryer like it was obvious. "Living the dream." We both chuckled at that. It felt easy, but under the surface there was a tension. Or maybe it was just in my head. I wasn't sure yet. I didn't know how to read him. But then, just before I left the laundry room, he said, "You doing anything later?" I froze for half a second before answering. "Not really." "Why?" He shrugged, casually folding a t-shirt. "I was thinking of watching that new action movie." "You down?" It wasn't a date. I told myself that repeatedly. Two neighbors hanging out. That's it. But I still found myself shaving a little closer than usual, swapping out my usual hoodie for a clean black tee, and even spritzing cologne before heading over. His door was already open when I knocked lightly. "Come in," he called from the couch. He'd set up popcorn and drinks like this was some kind of planned movie night. The living room light was off, except for a small floor lamp in the corner, casting this warm, mellow glow over everything. Tyler was stretched out on the couch, legs up, one arm resting along the backrest. I took the other side, leaving a respectable distance between us. But halfway through the movie, that gap was gone. It wasn't even a conscious thing. It just sort of happened. His leg shifted, brushing mine. I didn't move. Then, at some point, he handed me the popcorn, and his fingers lingered against mine. My heart jumped. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. But it was all I could think about. By the time the credits rolled, we were sitting close enough that our arms were touching. He turned to me slowly, his eyes holding that same unreadable look from the first night. "You always this quiet?" he asked. I swallowed. "Depends on the company." He nodded slowly, like he understood more than I was saying. "You're different," he said. I didn't know what he meant by that. "In a good way?" "Yeah," he said. "In a good way." I stood up, suddenly unsure of myself. "Well, I should probably let you get some sleep." He didn't move from the couch, just looked up at me. "You don't have to go." My breath caught. "Tyler, I'm not trying to make it weird," he said quickly. If you want to stay, it's cool." It was quiet for a long beat. Then I nodded. "Okay." He slid over, making room for me to sit back down. This time, when I did, he leaned back against the couch and let our shoulders rest together. No words, no rush, just that subtle shift in gravity pulling us closer. I didn't sleep at all that night. Not because anything happened, but because I couldn't stop thinking about the way it felt to sit next to him like that. The warmth of him beside me, the casual way he accepted the space between us shrinking, and the way he looked at me before I left. Like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. The next few days were confusing, not in a dramatic whirlwind kind of way, more like quiet tension wrapped in everyday moments. Like standing too close in the kitchen, or catching each other's eyes and not looking away fast enough. Tyler didn't mention the movie night. I wasn't sure if I should either. But things weren't the same. We'd gone from neighbor nods in the hallway to sharing popcorn in the dark, shoulders pressed together for 2 hours. And now, every little thing felt like it had an extra layer. Every time I saw him, my pulse sped up just a little too much. One night, I came home late from work. Clients had been a nightmare, and the last thing I wanted was to talk to anyone. I was halfway up the stairs when I saw the glow under Tyler's door. I paused, then knocked. He opened the door wearing sweats again, hair messy, a controller in hand. "Yo," he said. "Bad day?" I must have looked as drained as I felt, because he stepped aside without waiting for an answer. "Come in! I just made frozen pizza and I'm getting my ass kicked on FIFA." I didn't hesitate. We didn't talk much that night. I think he sensed I wasn't in the mood for a deep dive. Instead, we sat on the floor, backs against the couch, legs stretched out, plates balanced on our laps. The game ran in the background, but neither of us paid much attention to it. He offered me a slice, and our fingers brushed again. This time, I didn't pull away, and this time, he didn't either. It wasn't anything dramatic. No kiss, no big moment. Just that lingering contact, that quiet heat in the space between us. And when the pizza was gone and the game screen had gone idle, we stayed like that. Not talking, not moving. Just existing in the same space like it meant something. After a while, he said, You ever think about stuff? I turned my head toward him. Stuff? He was staring straight ahead. You know, things you wouldn't normally talk about. My mouth went dry. I swallowed. Like what? He shrugged, eyes still locked on the blank TV. Like, have you ever liked someone you weren't supposed to? That did it. My heart thumped like it was trying to punch out of my chest. I didn't answer right away. Yeah, I said finally. I have. Silence. Then Tyler nodded, like he'd expected that answer, like he'd been hoping for it. You want to crash here tonight? He asked softly. It wasn't a question about sleep. Not really. I nodded. We didn't even move to the bed. We just stayed on the floor, leaning against the couch, and eventually, my head tilted onto his shoulder. He didn't shift away. Didn't say anything. Just rested his head against mine. That was the first night I felt it for real. Whatever this was between us, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't just me. He felt it too. I woke up with a crick in my neck, and Tyler's arm draped over me. The early morning light was filtering through the blinds, casting soft shadows across the living room. For a few seconds, I didn't move. Just stayed there, breathing in the warmth of him beside me. The steady rhythm of his chest rising and falling. It should have felt awkward. We were two grown men who'd fallen asleep shoulder to shoulder on the floor, like kids at a sleepover. His hand had ended up resting on my stomach. Mine was resting on his thigh, but it didn't feel weird. It felt safe. He stirred, his breath warm against my cheek. Morning, he murmured, voice gravelly from sleep. Hey, I whispered. He didn't move his arm. Just blinked at me for a moment, like he was still catching up to the reality of the position we were in. Then, did you sleep okay? Yeah. You? He nodded slowly. Better than I have in a while. Neither of us got up right away. It was like we both knew something had shifted, but neither wanted to be the first to call it out. Eventually, Tyler sat up and stretched, his shirt riding up to reveal the curve of his hip. I looked away, but not fast enough. He caught me, didn't say anything about it, just gave this little half smile, like he'd filed the moment away for later. I left shortly after with a lame excuse about having work to finish, but my mind was a mess all day. I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at me that morning, or the quiet gravity between us on that floor. I was reading into things, maybe, but I didn't want to stop. And part of me didn't believe it was just in my head. That night I didn't go over, and he didn't come by. The silence felt heavier than usual, like we were both waiting for the other to make the next move. Then, around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. Tyler, you up? My fingers hovered over the keyboard for maybe 2 seconds. Me. Yeah. No response. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find him standing there, hoodie on, hands shoved deep into his pockets. He didn't say anything, just looked at me for a long moment. Then, "Can I come in?" I nodded and stepped aside. He walked in like he wasn't sure what to do with himself, hovered by the couch. I stood there, unsure too. The silence pressed between us like a weight. Finally, he turned to face me. Look, I don't know what this is, okay? I'm still figuring it out. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. My heart thudded in my chest. He took a step closer. And the other night? That wasn't nothing, at least not to me. I couldn't speak. I didn't need to. Because the next thing I knew, he was in front of me, closer than ever before. His hand came up, hesitated, then touched the side of my face. You okay with this? He asked, barely above a whisper. I nodded. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't desperate, it was slow, careful, like he wanted to make sure I knew it was real. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Guess I'm not as straight as I thought, he murmured. I laughed softly, breathless. Yeah, I kinda got that feeling. He smiled. And that night, unlike the others, I didn't go back to my apartment. I stayed the night, not just physically but fully. No pretending it was sleep or comfort or some kind of accidental closeness. This time we curled into each other under his blanket, fully aware of every breath, every shift, every second. Tyler didn't say much after the kiss, he just held me. I think we both knew silence was safer than words right then, but morning had a way of making things real. When I woke up, Tyler was already up and dressed. He was in the kitchen, making coffee, back turned, and for a second, I wondered if he was pretending it didn't happen. Then he turned and slid a mug toward me, across the counter. "Morning," he said, voice soft. "I made yours how you like it." I exhaled, not pretending then. I walked over and took a sip. "Thanks." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes scanning me like he wanted to say something but couldn't quite start. I beat him to it. "You okay?" He nodded, but there was a tightness around his mouth. "Yeah, just... I didn't think I'd be here. Doing this. With you." "Regretting it?" His eyes snapped up to meet mine. "No. God, no. Just figuring it out." We stood there in the quiet hum of the kitchen. I let him have the space, but then he said something that threw me. "My ex used to live here. Before you moved in," I blinked. "Your ex?" "Yeah," he said. "A guy." That stopped me. He looked at me carefully. I didn't lie when I said I thought I was straight. I did. Or maybe I just told myself that long enough it felt true. But I was with someone once. It ended badly. Really badly. "What happened?" He hesitated, then sighed. He cheated. A lot. Manipulated the hell out of me. I didn't realize how messed up it was until after I left. I was crashing on couches for a while before this place opened up. I didn't think I'd ever let someone in again. He looked at me like he was bracing for judgment. But all I felt was a sudden urge to walk over and put my hand on his. So I did. "Thanks for telling me," I said quietly. He nodded, his shoulders relaxing just a little. "I don't know what this is between us yet, but I don't want to mess it up." "You're not," I said. "We don't have to rush anything." That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't cuddle. We sat on his couch, with our legs touching, watched dumb videos on YouTube, and laughed about nothing. And when he walked me to the door, he kissed my cheek. That was it, but it felt huge. Something was growing between us, something steady. But not everyone around us was ready for it, and I didn't know it yet. But soon, we'd be tested. Things were going good, not shout it from the rooftops. Good. We weren't there yet, but something real was happening between us. Quiet, steady, grounding. Tyler and I fell into this rhythm that felt right. I'd wake up in my place, go about my day, and somehow end up at his by nightfall. Whether we watched movies, cooked together, or just lay on the floor talking about life until one of us drifted off. He still kept a little distance. I could feel it sometimes. The way he hesitated before touching me in public spaces, or the way he'd change the subject if anything too emotional came up. But I didn't push. He was trying. And honestly, so was I. Then, one Friday night, everything shifted. We were in the kitchen, both a little buzzed, cooking something that had started as pasta but turned into a mess of improvised ingredients and inside jokes. Tyler was shirtless again. He always ran hot, and the sight of him barefoot, humming some dumb pop song while stirring sauce, was enough to make my brain short-circuit. That's when there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp bangs. He froze. I didn't think much of it. Probably a neighbor or a package delivery. I wiped my hands and moved to answer. "No. Wait," Tyler said quickly, voice tight. "Let me." I paused. The second he opened the door, the energy shifted. I couldn't see the guy at first. Just heard his voice. Low, confident, a little too familiar. "Didn't expect to find you here," the guy said. When I came around the corner, I saw him. Tall, tan, smirking like he owned the place. And Tyler, he looked like someone had punched him in the gut. Hey, the guy said to me, eyes scanning me in a way I didn't like. I'm Jordan. He didn't say it, but I could feel the unspoken. And I know exactly who you are. I nodded, tight-lipped. Daniel. The air in the room was suddenly ice cold. Jordan stepped inside like he belonged. Heard you were still in the building. Thought I'd stop by. Catch up. Tyler didn't move. Why are you here? Jordan smiled. Come on, don't be like that. I just wanted to talk. Like old times. That's when it clicked. This was the ex. The one who wrecked him. I stepped back, gave them space, but didn't leave the room. Tyler crossed his arms. You said everything you needed to when you walked out. Jordan chuckled. Don't be dramatic. We had good times too. You really gonna act like none of it meant anything? Silence. I could feel Tyler's breath shorten. His jaw clenched. I wanted to jump in, say something, but I didn't want to make this mine when it wasn't. You should go, Tyler finally said. Jordan looked past him, right at me. You sure? 'Cause it looks like you've got a lot to explain to your new friend here. Go, Tyler said again, louder this time. Jordan raised his hands in mock surrender and backed toward the door. You've changed, man. Soft now. He turned to me one last time, smirk still plastered across his face. Good luck. The door slammed. Tyler stood there, chest rising and falling, eyes locked on the floor. I walked over slowly. You okay? He didn't answer. I touched his arm, and he flinched. Barely, but enough to feel it. I'm sorry, he whispered. You didn't deserve that. It's not your fault, I said gently. He looked at me then, really looked, and I could see it. The fear, the shame, the part of him that still believed he wasn't allowed to be happy, that people like Jordan would always show up, always find a way to ruin good things. Let's sit, I said, pulling him toward the couch. He didn't resist. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he said, I didn't think I'd react like that. I thought I was past it. You are past him, I said, but some wounds take time. Tyler leaned into me, just enough that our shoulders touched. He didn't say anything else that night, but the way he held on told me everything. We weren't just messing around anymore. This was real. The next morning, I found Tyler on the balcony, sitting on a fold-out chair with a hoodie pulled over his head, staring at nothing. A mug of coffee was going cold on the ledge beside him, untouched. I didn't say anything at first, just slid the glass door open and stepped out into the early morning air, quiet except for the low hum of the city waking up. I sat down in the other chair, waited. It took a while, but he finally spoke. I didn't sleep, I nodded. Me neither. He rubbed his face, still not looking at me. I hate how he still gets to me. It's like one knock on the door and I'm 21 again. Weak. Stupid. You're not stupid, I said. Tyler finally turned his head. You didn't see me back then. I see you now. His eyes lingered on mine. There was something raw there. Something cracked wide open. He looked away again. When we were together, I ignored all the signs. I knew he was lying. I knew he was messing with my head. But I was so scared of being alone that I let it happen. I let him shape how I saw myself, like I was only worth something if he said so. My chest ached hearing him say that. I reached over and laid a hand on his knee. He doesn't get to define you anymore, Tyler nodded, but it was slow, hesitant. I don't want to bring that into this with you. You're not, I said. You're doing the opposite. You're letting me see you. That's more than most people do. He looked at me again, and this time there was something steadier in his eyes. I'm trying, he said. I know. We sat there in the morning light until the chill forced us back inside. And that day, something shifted. Not in a dramatic, fireworks kind of way. More like tectonic plates moving quietly beneath the surface. Tyler didn't flinch when I touched his arm in the hallway. He didn't hesitate when I leaned against him on the couch later that night. We didn't talk about Jordan again. He was done being a ghost in our story. That weekend, we went grocery shopping together for the first time. A small thing. But it felt weirdly intimate. Arguing over cereal brands, sharing inside jokes in the produce aisle, watching people give us that curious second glance when I nudged him with the cart and he laughed. He didn't step away. He let them see. And I saw something else too. Him opening up, bit by bit. There was this moment in the kitchen Sunday night. I was doing the dishes, humming under my breath, and he came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and just rested his chin on my shoulder. No words. No pressure. Just presence. And when I turned to face him, he didn't pull back. He kissed me again, this time deeper, slower, more sure. When we pulled apart, he whispered, "I think I'm falling for you." I swallowed, heart racing. "You think?" He smiled. "I know." And just like that, all the quiet buildup, all the sidelong glances and cautious touches, every bit of tension and unspoken longing, it all spilled over into that kiss. That night, that moment. We didn't rush, but we didn't hold back either. We took our time, learning each other in the dim light of his bedroom, no longer pretending we didn't want this, no longer afraid of what it meant. That night, we stopped being something uncertain. We became something real. The weirdest part about falling in love isn't the big moments. It's the tiny, almost unnoticeable shifts. Tyler started leaving his toothbrush in my bathroom. I started keeping oat milk in my fridge because he refused to drink regular. We stopped texting, "You up?" because we already knew the answer. By then, we were sleeping in the same bed more nights than not. People in the building started noticing too. There was no dramatic coming out moment, no announcement, just us side by side, picking up takeout, walking back from the corner store, sometimes holding hands, sometimes not, but always close. The guy at the coffee shop downstairs started calling us the quiet couple. We didn't correct him. And Tyler? He changed. Slowly, but fully. The guy who used to walk around with his walls up, earbuds in, avoiding eye contact, he started leaning into life more. He'd joke with the barista, hold my hand without looking around first, laugh a little louder. He was healing. And so was I, in ways I didn't know I needed to. There was one night, just a random Tuesday in the middle of everything, when we were lying in bed, half asleep, limbs tangled together, and Tyler whispered, "I don't think I've ever felt this safe." I didn't say anything, just squeezed his hand under the blanket. Because that was it, really. Not the heat, not the tension, not even the intimacy. It was the safety. The quiet comfort of knowing someone sees you completely and still chooses to stay. One afternoon, I came home to find Tyler standing in front of his open closet, suitcase on the floor. Panic gripped my chest before I could stop it. "You going somewhere?" He turned and smiled. "Yeah, here." He held up a stack of t-shirts. "Yours, by the way. You leave more of your crap here than at your own place." I blinked. "You're moving in? I mean, unless you don't want me to," he said casually, like it wasn't already decided. I crossed the room in 3 steps and kissed him. "Took you long enough." We moved my things in over a weekend. It wasn't official. No paperwork, no big announcement, just 2 people slowly making one life out of 2 apartments. We didn't rush it. We didn't force anything. But we woke up together. We cooked dinner together. We argued about dish placement and laughed about the stupid way I fold towels. And every night, when he reached for me in the dark, I reached back. Because this was real now. Not a question mark. Not something on hold. Ours.